All right. Well, welcome. Let's begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now, looking around, most of you have been through one of these kind of informational SPARC meetings before. Is anyone, this is their first time? Don't know much about it? Okay, we got a couple of kids. Great. Just real briefly, a sense of history. Why are we doing this, and what is SPARC? Some of you already know, but I'll try to kind of speed things along. The reason we have SPARC and not confirmation is because confirmation doesn't work. It doesn't work, not just at Immanuel, but at any congregation. The success rate of confirmation, if you measure success by students who start and are confirmed and maintained active in their faith through their adulthood, is about 30% success rate. That's across the Synod, across the denomination, every church. That means a 70% failure rate. So confirmation doesn't work. I've wrestled with trying to make confirmation work for 30 years as a pastor, and I've never found a way to do it. So about 3 years ago, we got together with a committee, an amazing group of young people. They're all younger than me, so they're young adults, and said, if confirmation doesn't work, what can we do that would work? And we came up with this idea of SPARC. And I simply said, blank slate, start from zero, build a program that you would like your children to be a part of that would do the best we can to try to secure the idea that you would have a lifelong relationship with God. And they came up with SPARC, and most of you have kind of heard it. It was out of the blue. There's no program. There's no book at Synod. You don't go to a seminar and learn how to do SPARC. We made it up from the scratch. Now, we had a few kind of ideas that were handed to us, but we pretty much made up our SPARC ourselves. And we said, you guys are the guinea pigs, because I don't know if this is going to work. What I do know is what we were doing wasn't working. So we've got to do something different. And so we came up with this idea, and we dumped it on you. And we tried it for 2 years, and we had made some tinkers and adjustments, but we found out that there are things that aren't perfect. And so we did a survey last summer, and maybe many of you may have gotten that survey. We asked for your input on that. We heard a lot of really, really, really good response. And so we listened to that. And so the way I think about this is, how many people have an Apple phone or an iPhone? Or some sort of a smartphone? What version of Apple phone do you have? Is it 10 or 11? Is that the 11 they have now? How many had like the Apple phone 1 or 2, like the original? No? Okay, we had 1, good. Is the original the same phone that you have today? It is not. How many remember their first smartphone? Is it the same phone you have today? No. It's much different. Every year they come out, they make improvements, they drop things, they add things, they make things improvement. Well, this is SPARC. What you had was the Apple phone SPARC version 1.0. And that was a great thing because it was different than anything we've done, but it doesn't mean it's the best way. So listening to your feedback and your comments, we said, let's see if we can make it easier. Let's see if we can improve on what we had started with, keeping the core concept of what it was about. How to improve the idea of moving our people from young people through adulthood and not losing their faith. And so this summer, we met multiple times and tried to take into consideration all of your thoughts and your inputs and redefine and restructure it. So what we're going to produce to you today is SPARC 2.0, if you will. It's our revised version of it, dropping some things, adding things. One of the things that we heard back from you, and we thank you rejoicefully, that we over-engineered it. This is kind of a John Deere thing. We put too much. We had to try to make it too complicated. We need to simplify it. We need to make it clear with keeping the same focus. And so we tried to pare it down and simplify it without losing the very essence of what it was. Does that make sense? And so thank you for your input. In 2 years, we're going to get inputted good, and we're going to make some more adjustments. But this is something we're learning as going along, and so we appreciate it. Here's some of the things that we heard that you're happy with. The engagement, the involvement, family involvement, early ties with pastor, students go at their own pace, groups work together. Things that needed to be fixed, overcomplicated. Does anybody really understand the point system and how it worked? Neither did we. We just wanted to hope that you wouldn't figure that out. No. But overcomplicated. More feedback from students and families. Active listening notes can be too much material. It's too hard to do. Website would be useful. Memory expectations. We didn't really know how to do that and adjust that. SPARC competing with youth group. They're supposed to be complimenting, but they felt like they were competing. More Barnabas involvement. So this is the feedback that you gave to us, and so we really listened and we went down through this. So some just brief highlights, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to each one of the different components of this 2.0 version, and they're going to go into detail, but some general overviews of what we've done to address the concerns and make it better. Number one is we've done away with the point system. There's no more keeping points. That was just too confusing, too hard, and it really kind of made it a law-based program. You got to get points or else. And what happens if you get to the or else? Nothing. So why do you have it? So we took that off. You'll have a checklist of things that you want to do, but not a points. What we've done is we've taken this whole SPARC thing and we've kind of broken it out into tiers, into 3 tiers. And you'll be introduced to those tiers today based upon a broad range of age group. You've got kind of the pre-SPARC, the middle school years, and the high school years, and different expectations. We're going to do some things with our Faith Alives and some of our other things, trying to record them on Wednesday nights when we have them, so that if there's a COVID issue, if there's a safety and health issue, you can still be able to access it online. What we don't want is to simply say, I'm going to stay home and do it online, because there is a important part of us having fellowship and camaraderie, face-to-face, in-person activities. But if for whatever reason you can't be there, you don't miss out. So we're going to try to do more of those kinds of things. We are actively in the process of developing a SPARC website, which will have all kinds of information, which will have different tiers, so you can go, well, my child is in this grade, and this is this tier, and this is what's expected, and this is what's going on, and these are the calendar events, and this is how I can sign up to do different activities. So we're going to do that. We'll be using Sign Up Genius. John was talking to me last night. Sign Up Genius is an online way to sign up for different activities. So if you're going to come to an event, you just go on and you sign up, and it'll send you a reminder. If you're going to acolyte, if you're going to usher, if you're going to help serve communion, you can sign up. Everything should be online, and so it wouldn't be us passing around a piece of paper. It would be you signing up. So we're going to use that. We added a couple committee members. Unfortunately, they can't be here right now, but we realized that out of our committee, all of our students went to Valley. So we wanted some committee members who had students that didn't go to Valley, and so they didn't feel left out, and what was their perception and how did they fit into the program. So we've added some committee members with that. We're also trying to make our summertime activities more affordable. They've been affordable, and we're going to make them even more affordable. No, they've been affordable. So this year we were supposed to go to the Ark, but because of COVID that got canceled. We're pushing that off till next year. It's our intention, our plan, and our every belief that we can do that almost at cost-free, so that it doesn't cost your child anything to do those kinds of things. Now, Ann is kind of giving me the eye here. Help me out, Ann.
And from the beginning, these trips were never meant to be burdensome financially. We knew they were expensive, and we just don't plan for that kind of thing. And so even that very first Colorado trip, it was little or no cost to people that went. And there seems to be an assumption in the congregation that we expect people to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars. No, we have never. So just to clarify,
Yeah.
we're very conscious of the cost of those.
And I think, Jeff, you did kind of that first trip to Colorado. I mean, pretty much even the adults went where it was almost cost neutral. I mean, it just cost you nothing to get a vacation in Colorado for 5 days. So that's our intent, and we want to keep it that way. We don't want anyone, you got a couple of kids, you got 2 or 3 kids, and suddenly the church says, well, you need to pay $400 a piece to do a week retreat. That's not right. So our intent is to eliminate that fear, but still to have them involved in those kinds of summer activities. All right, that's just kind of the big picture. There's lots of little details that are going into this, but to help us kind of understand the tier system, if you'll turn to that last page, I will never remember this because it's kind of a mental block in my head, but we've renamed the tiers based on kind of age groups. There's the kindlings, the lanterns, and the torches. Please don't ask me which one is which, because that's why these people are here to tell you that. So I'm going to ask Ann to talk a little bit about who are the kindlings and what are the expectation of the kindling group. You get torch, spark, kindling. They're all kind of fire related. Yeah, that was my idea. It's Colby.
Really, there aren't any big changes to that.
That's okay. This one actually works.
Okay. But talk to Pastor, before the first time you're going to take communion, and you guys can start doing that if you finish that communion class. So, okay, then I'll hand it over and talk about middle school. There.
So then, once your student has completed the kindling phase and they've done their My First Catechism and their communion class, then when they get into middle school, then they will be part of the Lantern group. So you can see on your sheet some of the changes that we made for that group. Quite a few, actually. The first big change that we made was to the Faith Alive classes. Previously, those have been for both middle school and high school kids, and it also sometimes kind of replaced youth group nights and things like that. So we've changed that. It's going to be just for middle school students, so the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are now taking communion will be a part of those classes, and they will all be on Wednesday nights. So the last 2 years, some were on Wednesdays, some were on Sundays, and they're going to be all on Wednesday nights now. 12 of them will be offered, so it'll be 4 every year, so 12 over the course of the whole middle school time. You don't have to come to all of them. It's a minimum of 6, though, that we do ask you to at least try to come to, but we're encouraging everybody to come to all of them because each one focuses on a different part of the catechism, different biblical ideas, so there's something to be learned from every single one. I think that's it about the Faith Alives. Another big change that we made was to memory verses. It was just kind of awkward the way we had it set up, where you had to pick verses and find people at church and say your verses and things like that. So now we're tying the memory work to the Faith Alive classes. So when you come to your Faith Alive class, you'll be given memory verses to memorize that go along with the topic that's being studied. And then kind of like how we did memory with our old confirmation system, then when you come to your next Faith Alive class, there'll be a little quiz that you'll do, and that's how you'll say your memory. And there will still be some other ones that you can say. If you are a student at Valley and there's a memory verse that you're working on for school, you're free to say that one as well. Or if there's just a verse that you really like or you've been working on, you're free to say that one. So like I said, the Faith Alive classes will all be on Wednesday nights, but obviously it's not going to be every Wednesday night. The Faith Alives are still just 4 weeks at a time, and then we take a little break until we start the next class. So one thing that we're working on, and it's not in place yet, but a goal that we have is to have a junior high youth program. So the kids in between the Faith Alive classes, that's what they would be doing on Wednesday nights for the middle schoolers. So again, that's nothing we have in place right now, but that is part of the vision that we're working on. The active listening notes, we used to call them sermon notes, those the middle school kids are still working on. 12 per year is what we're asking you to do. The forms that we've used the last couple years have been a little cumbersome. That was part of the feedback we heard. People were having trouble getting through those and getting those accomplished during the service. So we are going to be simplifying those, and they'll be in the back right on the table, just like before. You take one and turn it in on the tray. But we are going to be changing those and hopefully making those a little bit easier for everybody to get through.
And people who are attending church online, if they want to fill it out at home and send me a picture, some people can.
So are we going to have those available on the website that people could print off at home? So maybe we'll do that. Maybe that'll be on the website. So if for some reason you're quarantining or something and you're watching church from home, you can download those off of the website and print them out and do them that way. And then lastly, for the middle school, another thing we're asking middle schoolers to do for part of their service time is doing acolyting and then also beginning to help with ushering. So Pastor mentioned that we're going to be doing a sign-up Genius system, so that's something that you sign up online. We'll be using that for acolyting and ushering as well, and I believe that also will be linked to the new website, right? So if you go to the SPARC website, there'll be a link on there to get to Sign Up Genius, and then you can select which day, which service, if you want to acolyte, if you want to usher, whatever, it will be on there. So you sign up that way, and then it is pretty handy. It'll email you a reminder when your time is coming up, so that's how we'll be doing that. Right, ushering would be ushering with a parent or maybe an older sibling, or we're also going to be trying to encourage some of our high school students to maybe buddy up with a middle school person and kind of show them the ropes. And so the younger kids can learn those things that way. Does anybody have any questions about middle school group? The lanterns, right? Lanterns, yep. Any questions about any of that? No? Okay, then we'll move on to high school.
Yeah, so with high school, for incorporating SPARC and youth group, a lot of the things that we're trying to do with SPARC are things that we've always had a goal of doing in youth group anyways. So kind of my first element of not really change, this has always been kind of something that we've planned for SPARC goers to do during their high school years, but the Lutheran distinction portion of SPARC would be worked into those high school years of youth group. One of the topics that's always interesting that we always hear a lot of, interest in discussing in our youth group conversations is the difference between what we believe as Lutherans versus, well, not versus, but how it's different from other world religions. So those are kind of the two aspects of the Lutheran distinction that high school youth will go through with pastor to begin completing their elements of SPARC. So for this year, if you are at the point of being able to take your Lutheran distinction as part of the SPARC program, that's going to start on October 7th of this year. As the other two had mentioned, we're kind of uncoupling the SPARC or the Faith Alive and youth group programs. We're leaving Sunday nights, which have typically been our youth group nights. Sunday nights are going to be for high school youth, with the Faith Alive events being on Wednesday nights. If you are in high school, you're not required to attend the Faith Alives, as we have been in the past. But many of those topics are going to be pertinent to, things that we're even talking about in high school. So certainly if you're interested in coming to those, for example, this next one we've got coming up is going to be discussing the interaction between church and state as we're in kind of our political time right now with elections coming up. That might very well be something that our high school youth want to engage in and hear more about. Our guest is hopefully going to be Walt Rogers. So coming and hearing from one of our local politicians might certainly be something that as a high schooler you're very interested in. So you're more than welcome to attend those. But they won't take the place of our regular routine high school youth group meetings on Sunday nights. That was an element of feedback that I heard as a youth leader, that we all heard as a SPARC committee. So hopefully that's a positive change there. Of course, in our youth program, we end up talking about a lot of topical issues that can relate to what's going on in Faith Alive. So we'll still continue to talk about those kind of in our typical youth setting, our small group setting there. I mentioned Sunday evenings now belong to specifically high school youth. We'll also work in something we typically have done, but more intentionally and more in line with the 6 chief parts of the catechism on a rotating basis. We'll be working in the Lord's Prayer and the 10 Commandments and Holy Baptism, Sacrament of the Altar, the 6 chief parts of the Holy Catechism, or the 6 chief parts of the Catechism into our youth program on a rotating basis. So for example, this year, we may, in the fall, discuss the Lord's Prayer, and in the spring, one of our topics will be the Apostles' Creed. Next year, we'll move on to the Sacrament of the Altar and Holy Baptism. The following year will be the last 2, and then they'll start over again. So in your 4 years in high school, eventually, it may not come in the same sequence, but eventually you'll end up discussing all 6 chief parts of the catechism. So that's how we'll work that into those last years of SPARC for the torches during your high school years. In worship, with service to the congregation, we'll look to our high school youth to continue to usher, but once you're a high schooler, you're, I think, responsible enough to not have to do that with a parent. If you want to do that on your own, you're certainly capable of doing that. Doing other things like assisting with the technology and the screens, and being a technology assistant during the services. Those are some duties that we'll look to our high school youth for. And then the culminating experience of SPARC is what we're calling Lift High the Cross, and that's something that we intend for students to do during their senior year. They'll do a project, some sort of culminating project, service type thing that really expresses their own faith and their own journey with Christ. And then we intend for those to be kind of presented to the congregation during Reformation Sunday and during that time. And that's when we'll have our commissioning for those who complete the SPARC program. I know that's a lot of information. Anything I missed there? SPARC Committee for High School Youth. Any questions about high school program? Torches. Okay.
I just again want to reiterate how much your feedback has meant to us as a committee. If you're ever doing anything from scratch, you've got these ideas in your head and you think they sound really good. And when we were just blown away by our first effort at this, because no one ever done anything like this before, didn't realize that it was bulky and complicated, and so your feedback helps us improve this, and it's going to help the next generation. So your patience as we kind of rolled out the first one with enthusiasm, had no idea what we're getting ourselves into, working with us, kind of helping us muddle through it as we come on to phase 2 and going this, your patience again, because there will maybe things that we still need to adjust in the years to come. So very much appreciate your input. We did listen